So in the previous videos I showed how I can import data saved in text file format into an Excel spreadsheet so that I can then use Excel and other software to analyze the data and to work with the data. So what I'm going to do now is, now that I have imported all of those data, I am going to work with them. And the first thing that I probably want to do, given this data set, is I want to clean up this Excel sheet a little bit. Now, I prefer to, when I clean my data, to actually save a copy of that file. And the reason for that, I'm going to call this version 02, is that if I make a mistake, I prefer to have an earlier version of this file. Now, the reason that I do that and that I can afford to do this is because these files are not particularly large files. So if I have multiple versions as I work my way through the data analysis, that is not going to be the reason that my hard disk is going to be completely full. So this is stuff that is interesting, but I don't need it for what I am going to do next. So I simply delete these rows, and I am similarly going to delete those sheet rows at the end of the data as well. So all of that I am going to delete. At the same time, I know a few things about these data that I am now going to add to these data. And what I know is the timing of the different data points. So I'm going to write the time, and I'm going to give that in seconds. And if I go back over here, these were the data with 10-second intervals. So if I go here, then I know that this is time 0, and it means that this spectrum was recorded this plus 10 seconds later. And if I now drag this little corner and I drag it across, then you can see that the time for every data point has been calculated. So now for every spectrum I have a time point as well. So the next thing that I now want to do is I want to have a look at what these data look like. So what I'm going to do is I prefer to plot data in Origin, simply because Origin makes nicer files and it also has more powerful data analysis options. So I'm going to take these data and to select all of them. There we go. All of the spectrum, all of the spectra. And I am going to bring in my version copy of Origin, where I have already started a worksheet. I am going to Control C in Excel. I'm going to do Control V over here. And if I select just one cell, then I end up getting all of the data from Excel in my Origin worksheet. And at this point, I can select everything. I go to Plot. My most recently used is a line. So I plot this and make it full screen. Now I dislike these legends as part of the graph, so I'm going to delete that immediately. And it looks as if nothing really has happened. But that's because Origin has the habit of making sure that all of the data is shown on a graph. Now I happen to know that on the y-axis scale we are not really interested in -1 to 8. We are interested in the range from 0 to 0.3. So if I now press apply, you now really start to see the spectrum. I could, if I wanted to, and I guess I want to, also change the limits on the x-axis. I'm going to set that from 200 to 800 nanometers. Okay, so this is what my data look like. I will probably want to make sure that I label my axes. My y-axis is absorbance, and my x-axis is the wavelength. So what I'm going to do in order to get the wavelength on there is I'm going to bring in my Windows character map. I am going to find the letter lambda. Where are you? There. Copy that. Double click over here. Paste the lambda, and those wavelengths are in nanometers. If I want to be completely correct, I am also going to try to make this in italic. So that's my graph. This is my overlay spectrum, and it shows how I have a decrease in absorbance over here, and I have an increase in absorbance over here. But that's not, so what I could now do is I could decide I want to analyze these data, and I want to extract a kinetic curve. But in order to do that, I need to know where I have the biggest changes in these spectra. So in order to find out where I have the biggest changes, I am going to go back to Excel, and I am going to calculate something that is called a difference spectrum. And a difference spectrum is simply the spectrum, the last recorded spectrum, minus your first recorded spectrum over here. And as I did before, dragging this down by the corner means that I am going to repeat this calculation for every wavelength. Scrolling down, still scrolling down, 300, we're almost there. Excel knows that I'm reaching the end, so it slows down. So these are now my, this is now my difference spectrum. So I am going to, in fact, I'm going to add another column here. I'm going to call that wavelength, just because I know it's going to be easier to copy this across. And I should have done this immediately if I have the two columns right next to each other. Oh, there we are. X data, Y data. I'm going to copy the data, go back to my copy of origin, and I am going to create a new workbook. A blank workbook is okay. And I am now going to paste my data into that workbook. I am going to plot it as a line again. And what you see now, apart from a jump where the absorbance went off scale, I am going to zoom in again. Press apply. Let's see the kind of scale of things that I'm looking at. It doesn't go below minus 0.1. It doesn't go above 0.1 either. To apply that. That looks good enough. And just because that's what I did before, I am now going to apply the same settings as I had before to my x-axis as well. So this, oh, that's definitely not what I wanted to do. I'll get my lambda up again. And here I now have an absorbance change. So what I see, I can now read out. So these are just the coordinates of the screen. Probably better off with the data selector. I see that my largest decrease is at 350 nanometers. You can see that in the bottom of the screen over here. And my largest increase is apparently exactly at 400 nanometers. So those are the two wavelengths. I'm going to write them down: 350 nanometers and 400 nanometers. In the next video, I am going to use those wavelengths. I'm going to extract the absorbances at those wavelengths to create my kinetic plots. But that's the visual inspection of the data, and the kinetic analysis is going to be in the next video. So as always, thank you for watching, and I hope you find this video useful. Bye.